So my threefold approach is to take a client through these three phases, where first we're going to address desire for the future. What is it that you even want? We're typically crystal clear on what we're afraid of, or what we've been disappointed by, or just all these negative things that we don't want, crystal clear, right? But like, as we think about ourselves, growing old into the future, we are less clear on what we hope is there for us, like on a really granular level.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Love. I'm Robin Ducharme and I am joined today by my friend, the beautiful dating coach, relationship coach, Kristin Sokol. Kristin!
Oh my gosh, it's so great to be here. I've been counting down the sleeps until we got to hang out. I've missed you.
I love that, Chris. You know what? I count sleeps. I do that all the time with my kids and with my boyfriend. I'm like, how many sleeps do we get to see each other? Like, it's such a
Yes,
fun thing to do. And
that's what
um,
matters. The nights get
it,
long.
it really does. It really does. So you and I met in, was it May? It was.
It was
Last, sorry,
October.
October. What am I talking
Yes,
about?
it was October.
We were in California
Hmm.
with our friend Rachel Greenwald, who is absolutely
Can
one
you
of
believe
the
her?
I love her. She's been my mentor since 2012. And
Same.
Rachel is one of the top matchmakers in the world.
Mm.
And she hosted the Love MBA because she has an MBA from Harvard Business School. And she has created this program that she's been running, well, since 2010, I think was her first class.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a long time. And she brought together love professionals like
Mm.
yourself, dating
Mm-hmm.
coaches, matchmakers. Maya and I from our team were there as kind of like little birds, like we wanted to watch and see what was going on and be observers, but also just like learn what was going on in the industry and see how matchmakers and dating coaches were helping people find love. And
Mm-hmm.
you and I sat next to each other,
Yes, we did.
which meant to be. And right away I recognized your name because one of my best friends in the whole world is named Kristen. And I was like, Kristen, you're like, there's not many
Oh,
Kristens in the world, right?
I
Like,
know. I feel like for a common name, it's like one of the more unique common names.
I don't know if it's that common. Maybe our age group, but not anymore. But it's
Yeah,
a beautiful
true.
name. I love it.
Yeah.
And yours was with an
Yeah.
I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the I.
And
Yep.
and
That's the unique
so
part.
and then the other thing I wanted to just share with you, with our audience, is the fact that you are just so loving and caring and genuine and generous. And you were
Mm.
making these bracelets for all of the attendees, and people
Yes.
got to choose their beautiful bracelets that Kristen made. So I'm
It
wearing
was
my
so
bracelets
fun.
today, and they're all about love.
Oh,
And this one
you're
says
so
Love MBA. This
nice.
one says Happy Love. And yeah, so I think about you and just your generosity and kindness and fun. And I'm just so happy you're here with us
Mm.
today.
Oh my gosh. Well, that makes me feel so good. I thought you were going to bring up the fact that I was the one who had a big bag of Sour Patch watermelons that we were snacking on like
Oh, that too.
throughout
Lots
the
of
whole
candy. Kristen, you
conference.
supplied the candy and the bracelets. It was all good. Keep us going on the sugar.
I do love a
Yeah,
sweet treat.
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Okay, so
Yeah.
Kristen, tell us about yourself. I know that when people Google you, so your name is spelled Kristin,
Mhm.
and your last name is Sokol.
That's right.
And what comes up is you are a relationship development coach.
That's right.
I like that.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
good. So,
Yes.
so I would love to hear more about your business and
Sure.
how you and what you do day to day to help people with their love lives.
Okay, well, I would love to take you on this little journey. So, I actually started my career as a newspaper reporter. So I never actually, set out to be or meant to be any kind of relationship or dating coach, but I'm sure glad that's how it turned out. So, early on in my career, I was I was reporting on a government beat for our local paper and doing some other, ad hoc work for print news media, and really happy with what I was doing. I was in my late 20s at that point, not married. And most of my friends at that point were all either married or getting married. And I had one single friend left, and she met a guy online on Yahoo Singles. This was back in the year 2003. So
Yeah.
that's 100 years ago now. But she created, not wanting to leave me behind, created an online dating profile for me against my will. while I was literally crying about it on her couch. And she was an aspiring professional photographer at that time. So that meant that she had this amazing invention called a digital camera. So not only did she create this profile for me, but she also added photos, and that was the new element at the time, to have like actually digital photos. So I was mortified. And then 3 weeks later, I met the guy who has been my husband now for the last 20 years nearly. And I didn't realize at the time that that profile was going to not only change my personal life, but my love life too, or my professional life too. I had to that point, I had very little dating experience in my own life. I was in my late 20s. I'd never really had a long-term relationship or a boyfriend for more than a couple of weeks at a time. I was feeling pretty desperate about it. And just like I had a lot of friends, I was good at, socializing and connection, and I'm extroverted. But for some reason, for me, that was not translating into romantic relationships like it was for all of my other friends. So after I got married and I'm in this safe and secure relationship, I really started thinking about like, what is the piece that I was missing all those years? Why was this so hard for me? And it's intuitive for other people.
Hmm.
And shortly after I was married, a year or two, a friend of mine that I had grown up with had gotten divorced. And she came to me and said, Kristin, you met this great guy online and you're such a good writer and you have to do all this like writing for an online dating profile. And I can't put two sentences together. So could you help me? Could you help me like put a piece together? And I was chomping at the bit. I was so excited to like use my writing skills to like pull together a story that I thought would help her attract the type of guy that she would really be interested in. Lo and behold, weeks after we had launched this profile, and the things that went with it, she found a really great guy who treated her amazingly. They dated and fell in love and got married, and I started bragging about what I had done.
Yeah.
Because I was so proud of I was happy in my own marriage and so happy for her. And then she referred another friend to me, and I repeated that process. And she found somebody and got married too. And more people would just ask me for like, oh, can you help my brother? Or can you help my sister-in-law? Or, other friends would come out of the woodwork. And over about 5 years' time, I really started to transition my professional time from following this government beat and reporting for the paper to being some kind of quasi dating coach, limited
Yeah.
in this space to online dating. But then one of my clients who I'd been working with ended up meeting a gal through a profile that I had created for him. His girlfriend, who became his wife, worked for a matchmaking firm. And that was
Wow.
like mind boggling. I had no idea that this was a real thing, outside the Hallmark Channel or, maybe New York City. So long story short, I ended up working there for several years, lots of hours, and I gained a whole wealth of insight about not only just limited to the online dating, which was my expertise, but I got to see the whole matchmaking process and world. My boss, who was the founder of the matchmaking company, was very, what's the word? Not aggressive, but excited about bringing in experts and training us and giving us all the latest information. And she's the one that introduced me to Rachel Greenwald. And I believe I was in one of the founding, classes of her Love MBA way back when. I can't remember what year it was, but it was quite a while ago now. So I
Yeah.
met Rachel then, and my eyes were opened, and I knew I had found my calling. But I also knew that I didn't have any education, like specific education in coaching, right? And no credentials. And
Hmm.
so I had a bachelor's degree, but I found a graduate program at the University of Texas in Dallas, where one half of that graduate program was getting a ICF executive coach training certificate. So I did that program, made some amazing contacts, and since then I have been in my office here in the Love Den, just coaching people. And since where I started was, limited relationship experience. I haven't intentionally tried to attract this, but most of my clients have limited experience in romantic relationships. They're very successful in their professional life. They're gregarious people. They're healthy. They're well. But for some reason, like me, their skills never translated for them into helping them find and secure romantic relationships. And so, through my association with the university and the coaching program, plus Rachel Greenwald and, about the Global Love Institute. They
Yes.
bring together a lot of experts and mentors. And I have really been able to kind of fill my own knowledge gap about how romantic relationships are supposed to develop, right? From beginning to marriage, like what is the process that they typically follow? And then if we can break it down and help clients fill their own knowledge gaps, then they don't need a matchmaker. They do better in those situations and are able to then convert casual friendships and relationships into romantic ones when the opportunity presents itself. So that's a little bit about what I do. I work with between 5 and 8 clients a day. Most of my clients, I would say, are women, but maybe like 70-30, 60-40, depending on the time of year and things like that. Most of my clients are between the ages of 30 and 50, but that's being said, my youngest client is 22 and my oldest is 76. So there is a range, but that seems to be what I generally attract. And I coach virtually, almost exclusively virtually, all over the country. Yeah.
So we have such a similar, a little bit of a similar story around how we both got into the love industry, because
tell me more.
when my best friend, one of my best friends, Kirsten. So I've got 9 best friends that I grew up with, and the 10 of us
I
are
love
called
it.
Bonahan. And Kirsten was moving from Vancouver to Victoria, where I live, and she was single and she wanted to get married, have kids, and it just wasn't happening for her. She had been doing a lot of dating and it just wasn't clicking. And I said, you know what? And I was working as a realtor at the time. And I said, I can help you. Like, I sincerely want to, and we're going to have fun with this. So I got on the phone. I asked everybody I knew, and every place I went, I'd be asking like acquaintances or just like random people, like, who do you know that's single that might be a good fit? And I would describe Kirsten to a T.
Yeah.
Well, as much as because I know and love her very much. So
You little
and then
matchmaker, you.
and then I was setting up dates. And by the time she moved here, I had 10 men lined up, ready to go. And I set the dates up, did the feedback.
You're
So it
good.
started out coming from a place of care and love for her and turned into a career. So it's kind of similar.
Yes.
But
Yes.
Kristin, I want to ask you this question, because you said while you were describing your story, you identified in yourself what you thought was holding you back. Like what, before you met your husband? I know you said you were engulfed in your career and successful in many other places in your life. You're very outgoing. You've got great friendships, community. So what did you realize in yourself where the gap was, that you've actually been able to translate to your clients?
That's a really interesting question, and it kind of connects back to my past. So I am the youngest child in my family. I have 5 big brothers, no sisters. So I grew up with a lot of boys in kind of a rough and tumble, really casual place, and their friends were always in and around and through, and it was a very, friendly, like fist bump, shoulder bump zone. And I think that I was treating, like I just had some like thinking errors or conclusion errors as I was engaging in new opportunities to connect with people that I was romantically interested in, but my signals certainly weren't communicating that to them, right? I was inadvertently placing them in a friend zone. So that was one of my issues.
And they were perceiving that, Chris, right?
Yes.
They were
Yes,
perceiving you coming across as like,
me.
oh, she's my buddy. You're not putting out like the feminine, like I'm attracted to you, like those kind of receiving. You're more
Right.
like, hey, bud, right? Treating them like a friend.
Yes.
Okay, I get that.
Let's fist bump and yes, let's do those things. So I think that was a real error. And so they weren't seeing me in that kind of romantic light, or,
Mhm.
people are afraid. I was afraid too. We're all afraid of rejection. And so, there was like an issue with the vulnerability piece there too, of like, what if I did step forward, and what if I was flirty, and what if I was, express some interest, and they shut me down? I don't know if my heart can handle that. Right. And you can do that for years or decades at a time. But if you want to find secure, real love, there is risk involved. Right.
Sure is.
And we have to take
Yeah.
some of those swings. This week I've been talking with my clients a lot. And this metaphor keeps coming up um, of a baseball metaphor, where, we all hope to step up to home plate and swing the bat and hit a home run. Right. And so we are
Yeah.
often waiting for the perfect scenario and the perfect pitch before we're willing to swing. Right. But if you don't get any batting practice, right, if you don't ever have any experience swinging that bat, even when the perfect situation comes along, you might not be experienced enough to really hit it out of the park.
I really like
Right.
that
And so I
analogy.
totally see that was my issue for sure,
Mm.
is I just wasn't ever didn't have enough experience making taking some of those risks and making those advances, to really know how to put it together.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So with your clients, you are using all of your coaching experience. And I really like this because okay. But first, I want to say that I was working as a matchmaker and love coach, and the matchmaking piece for me wasn't where my strong suit was. It was in the
Same.
coaching. It was in the
Yeah.
coaching
Same.
because what I was realizing, there was the dynamic there, right? I mean, matchmaking can work for people. Okay, we do
Yes.
know that from being in the
Yes.
industry, but I think
Yes.
coaching, first of all, it's just, I think, more approachable for the majority.
Yeah. And
And I
affordable.
also,
Yeah.
yes, affordable. And what I really realized in my own experience was that I loved empowering people, giving them the tools,
Mm.
and then I'm right beside you, I'm your ally, and we could do this together, rather than the matchmaking model, which it does. There's like this like idea, like, okay, I'm going to pay you a whole bunch of money and you do it for me, and it's
Yeah.
like the onus is on the matchmaker. It's like,
Yes.
I know that
Yes.
the industry is changing and we're changing that dynamic, but the coaching, I love this about. Okay, so you have a threefold approach, and I really would love for you to go through this because it's pretty powerful stuff. How you're going about it with your clients.
Yes. So, when I take a new client, typically I take that client for about 10 sessions. So this is not an indefinite, relationship where we have to be working together until the day that you get engaged. Although, I do have some clients that want more than 10 sessions. I don't fire anybody. But over those 10 sessions, right, when I take a new client, we're going to cover 3 different phases, right? Because this is a holistic process. It isn't any one thing. It's like, we need to rise this tide like across the board, in a
Mm.
holistic way, and then we're going to find our success. That's what I found to be true. So my threefold approach is to take a client through these 3 phases, where first we're going to address desire for the future. What is it that you even want? We're typically crystal clear on what we're afraid of, or what we've been disappointed by, or just all these negative things that we don't want, crystal clear, right? But like, as we think about ourselves, growing old into the future, we are less clear on what we hope is there for us, like on a really granular level. What do we
Yeah.
want? So that is one of the most powerful things that I do preliminarily with a client, is help them decide on a granular level what their life would look like if they had what they wanted, right? And that really causes them to pause, and think. And I am always stunned that I would say, not everybody, but I would about 95% say, I have never thought about this before. It didn't feel practical, like it was, or safe. So I've never articulated this.
What are questions that you would ask, and even for the audience members listening,
Yeah.
how does somebody identify on a granular level what they desire in a partnership or relationship?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what I would tell you, or what I'd take my clients through, just a piece of it, a small piece of it, is I have them picture themselves 10 years into the future, right? First, think about your age in 10 years. Even thinking like that, like, oh my gosh, someday I'm going to be 56. Like, I
Yeah,
just
we're the
never
same
thought
age.
about
I'm
myself being
46 too. Yeah.
56. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like let's talk about like a Saturday morning. What's Saturday going to be like for you when you're 56? Who's living in your house? What's the day's agenda? What does it hold? And take me through this. What's your relationship like with your partner, your spouse? Or are you married, right? And what happens in the evening, right? So they think through those things, and articulated desire. It also builds a motivation, right? And that is like, oh, I really want this. Like, and like, hey, time is of the essence. If I want my life to look like this in 10 years, like, let me think back on what do I have to start doing now? Because this future that I'm thinking through takes time to build and to develop and to, enduringly exist. Yeah.
Okay, that's
So
part of
that's,
phase one.
yeah, that's the desire piece. And as soon as we
Hmm.
start tinkering with desire and thinking about things that are not had but are wanted, our brains start getting like activated and like, uh-oh, what if you don't get this? You're going to be so disappointed. You better not think about this, right? You better not try. Let's keep everything status quo, because the status quo of your life is safe and predictable. Even if it's not what you want, it's still safe and predictable. And so our brains and our bodies really want to hold on to that because of our survival instincts. So the partner to really ramping up desire is understanding how to manage the mindset while you're allowing yourself to move into a growth zone, right? That's a big
Oh,
piece, because if you're not prepared for the objections that your mind is going to give you as you're trying to grow and put yourself out there in a romantic way, you're not going to be successful at really allowing that growth enough time to really make those changes over the long term. Does that make sense? So that's what we
yes.
do in the first phase is all about desire and managing the mindset of being in a growth zone. It's a big deal. The second phase do you want me to take you through that?
Yes,
Do you have
please.
questions or response? Okay. So the second phase is this a fun, like really exciting stuff, and stuff I'm so delighted that I wish I knew, 30 years ago would have changed everything, but glad I know now. It's the science and the research behind how romantic relationships develop, right? There are phases that a romantic relationship will unfold through, and knowing where you are in those phases helps you stay in your lane, right? And be able to orient yourself, because it's really easy as, intelligent women, and men, intelligent women and men, like we can see trouble a mile away, right? And so we think, ooh, I better avoid any trouble. But sometimes that gives us a real opportunity cost, right? Sometimes we're thinking about, somebody who might be a potentially great fit, is willing and ready and available and interested in us, but they live 60 miles away, right? Or they live 200 miles away or 6,000 miles away. Um, and we think, oh, that would be like, I don't want to do long distance dating. Like, it just seems like that would be such a pain. And in fact, this was my very story. When I live in Utah, I'm a Salt Lake City gal. My husband at the time was living in Orange County, California. When I first got his message online, you better believe I was like, no, thank you. I don't want to be involved in any long-term
Right.
like internet romance. That sounds like
Yeah.
such a pain. But now, 20 years in, is it a problem that once upon a time he lived in another state than I did? Not at all, right? Where we
Right.
we gotta reserve that, like staring at the problems and trying to solve them before we've allowed ourselves to really connect or find out who they are or how we may fit well together. If we worry on problems too soon, we're gonna cost ourselves the opportunity to see if we ever could connect. Right. And I
Right.
know that was a problem that I had. I would see, oh, this lifestyle is different than mine, or that value might be different than mine, or, maybe somebody has a child. I didn't see myself as an instant, parent. So nobody that has kids. And actually got the most beautiful letter yesterday. Got a wedding invitation and a letter from a client who thanked me profusely, and she didn't need to. She did this on her own, but she is marrying a widow and he's got a couple of kids. And
Mm.
for she's 38, so for the last 20 years she hadn't allowed herself to ever even consider the possibility of dating somebody who had kids because she didn't think she wanted that. But as it turns out, as she's gotten to know this man, as she has developed a relationship with these kids, nothing is bringing her more joy than the relationship she has with them. She just didn't know that's what she wanted until she allowed herself to build that connection.
Yes.
Right. And
And
when we
so
understand,
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say you're really helping people. First, it is opening your mind. I get that, but you're helping people identify their beliefs, right?
Yes.
And how
Yes.
there are so many beliefs that we have that are limiting us. Like
Yes.
even you said yourself, it's like you weren't open to a long distance relationship until you started really communicating with your husband now at the time and
Right.
really realizing actually that belief is not working for me. And actually this could work, even though we live states apart.
Yes. It's so expensive to to have this problem focused mindset. It's costs
Mm.
us so much to reserve our connection opportunity, like that opportunity to develop connections only with people that have a potential to be a home run, and we know it from second one. Right? We are missing out on all the batting practice and all the experience and wisdom that we could be gaining and insights from allowing ourselves to know people, right? And allowing them to know us. Right. And that's like, I'm
Yes.
always, getting after my
Yes.
clients saying, hey, he's got kids. He's not asking you to be those kids' stepmom. He's asking you if you want to go to Froyo. I think you can do it.
Exactly. Let's take it easy here. You like give the guy a
Right.
chance, give the person a chance. This
Right.
is so good. It's
Yeah.
like people coming in. This is the same old that we talk about, right? Is people coming in with their list.
Yeah.
Come on. Like most
Yes.
people that are coming to you, Kristen, they probably have a list of all the things that they are
Yes.
looking for in a partner. And what are
Yes.
you saying to people when they come in with that list?
Well, there's lists and there's lists, right? So, do you know Terry Orbach? Do you know who that is? Dr.
Yes.
Terry
Yes.
Orbach?
Yes. Dr.
She's
Terry was on our
she
show.
She's fantastic. One of
Yeah,
my
she is.
all-time great mentors, Rachel Greenwald level, love her to death. So her study, the early years of marriage study, has identified that there are like 6 universal values that, everybody in her study, all 373 couples that she's been following now for 30 plus years, they all had 6 values in common. But the couples who've stayed together over time, which I think is something like 52% of those couples who are still married 30 years later, those 52%, the thing that they had in common is that they prioritized, of those universal 6 values, they shared the same top 2, right? And the couples that had differing values did not last the test of time, right? So when I say there's lists and there's lists, we need to be picky about the right things, right? It
Right.
can't be height, right? It can't be career paths, right? Because those things ultimately don't matter. But, some of these top tier values, like, the way we feel about faith, religion, or spirituality, if that's my number one priority, I probably have to find somebody who is as passionate as I am or close, right? Or if my desire for family is really, really strong, and I'm dating a finance guy from Wall Street that wants to climb and climb and climb and maybe wants to have a kid, maybe, sure, but it is not a top tier priority, that relationship is probably going to suffer too. So
Right. Like
yes, you could.
I would identify, like, for instance, my one of my top values absolutely is my relationships with my family and friends. Like
Yes.
my children, my best friends, my family members, my
Yes.
community. And if somebody doesn't align with how relationships are important to them, then it's like
Yes.
that's not going to work. Because what am I going to do? Be
Yeah.
fighting with somebody about like how much right? It's like you have to be aligned
Time
and
you're
like
spending and bandwidth you're
right.
giving them, yeah, they would have to buy into the same values that are like driving you internally, right? We don't need a personality twin. That's like my favorite Logan Ury
Yes, definitely not.
nickname. Yeah, we don't need that. We don't have to have identical interests, but those core values, the things that are internally driving us, we do need a list, and we want to compare our at least the top priorities, not even all of them, but the very tip top ones do need to align.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's the kind of list. We throw away the old list and we create a new list
Yes.
together that's based on the science and
And
research.
I really like that, Kristin, how you said you know your values that are internally driving you. That's a really good way to really decipher what are your closest values. I love that. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're in phase two, and what you're
Yes.
okay.
So phase two, science and research, all the different relationship dynamic, the pieces that nobody's teaching you that in college. That's where we do a lot of our learning, right? Or maybe you're a church person, right? The church teaches a lot of, values and principles. But how a romantic relationship is supposed to develop, like there's kind of a knowledge gap of where we're supposed to learn that, right? I've made it my lifetime quest. That's why I know. But it's hard to find, good reputable sources. And, especially in today's world of media voices and influencers everywhere, there's a lot of opinions. But there are some that are better than others. So I have really tried to educate myself so that I can pass those on to my clients. They can fill their own knowledge gaps and do a better job being their own matchmaker, right? So that's what that phase two is all about, getting them caught up to speed on the science and research when it comes to relationship development. And then the third phase, maybe this is the part I've been doing the longest and what's funnest for me, is we make sure that my clients have the assets they need to be attracting the type of people they really want to be seeing, they want to be dating, both in person and, digitally, right? So that they are sending the right messages digitally, via their written content, also their appearance, right? So the photo packages and portfolios, like they really, really matter.
Yes,
And
they
I can
do.
tell you,
People don't actually
they
realize this, Kristin, but your photos matter.
your first impression really matters. Like, I read somewhere like you have 3 seconds to make a first impression on someone. 3. And then after those 3 seconds have expired, people have made up their minds on who they think you are. And it will take you, dozens and dozens of additional encounters with that person to get them to change what they thought your first impression is, right? So we have to go to some specific lengths to make sure that we are communicating who we are to the people that we are meeting. And I can tell you with certainty that, prior to my sort of personal revolution, when I allowed my friend to do this for me, I was not dressing the way that I needed to attract attention. I was not fixing my hair or makeup in a way that was especially eye-catching. It was fine, but it certainly wasn't doing any of the work of attraction for me. And then
Yeah.
I guess like getting together some photos or putting some effort into taking some photos that might work for me. I didn't have that either. And so that's really what I help my clients do is, sometimes that means, do we need to update your hair and makeup? If sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And there's experts that can help you do that. It's not me, but there are other people out there that do that. Sometimes my clients need, some kind of closet consultation where they've got to up level or update their wardrobe before they're really going to be ready to send the kind of message that they need to attract the type of people that they want. But once we have all those pieces in play, then it's a matter of just kind of packaging it neatly and putting it out there for the world to see. So that's what we do in that third phase is we assess what's missing, we get those pieces, and then we package it together so that, when you're at a party, right? If you're invited to a game night with friends or you're at some kind of conference, like I would never, we don't have to wait till it's just social. Like if you go to a professional conference and you're meeting people from all over, you can absolutely, market yourself from a social standpoint and make connections that could develop into something really wonderful. At a place where you maybe wouldn't think that you could. But if you had the tools and you were prepared to do that, it's so much easier to take advantage of those opportunities. So that's what phase 3 is all about. And this also gets me back into my little pilot's chair of creating content, right? I started as a newspaper reporter, but now, the way that dating apps work, we create these little tiny action-packed blurbs that we want to elicit a response from somebody, right? So I always make my clients be a lot more instead of short answers that are vague, we try to engage their end viewer into responding, right? By asking a question in their dating profile. Like, for example, I'm a pickleball player. If you know of an uncrowded court, hit me up, right? I want to hear about that,
Oh, I like that.
right? And
Yeah.
so
You're
pickleball
engaging
players,
conversation
yeah,
and
and
you're
I'm like,
telling something about yourself,
yes, you're speaking to
right?
them and you're waving a flag, like to your tribe, like I'm over here, come and find me, right? It's so much easier for
Mhm.
them to find you if you give them easy ways that they can engage with you. Yeah.
Yes. And because of your journalism background, I really think it's about you want to be yourself. You want to show your uniqueness because we all are so unique in our ways, right?
Yes.
And tell a story. And
Yes.
I think that's a really good way to convey who you are is through like little stories, little snippets, like you said. Can you give us some more
Right.
examples?
Yeah, sure. Like my philosophy here is like there's a lid for every pot, right?
Hmm.
So,
And
I
probably
think
a lot more
there's
lids than you think, not just one, right, Kristen?
no, no, there are ample. Like, it doesn't matter how unique or special you think you are. I promise that there is a really good amount of lids and pots that fit each other. And here's the thing, it's not just one, right? We are not I don't believe that we are, predestined to find one and only one partner in this world. Like if you think about um your Tupperware drawer, right? Of your plastic containers that you put leftovers in. You probably have, 75 bowls and 150 lids. And a lot of them look like they're going to fit each other. But when it comes down to like really getting that seal and wanting to put a container of leftover spaghetti in your backpack, there's some seals that you're going to trust more than others, right? So it's a matter of finding a combination that does work. They're not all
Yeah.
going to work, even if they seem like they might. But there's, of that group, there's going to be 5 or 6 that will fit beautifully and will seal nicely, right? So it's a matter of attracting those, real seals. And we can't do that if we are trying to, follow the trends and saying, well, everybody else seems to be outdoorsy. So I guess I'm going to talk about myself as a person who loves to hike and loves to
Yeah.
do
No.
long distance endurance things, but that's not me, right? So what is you? Right. And how can we showcase that? And so, that's one thing that I help my clients put together. If they're indoorsy, then we'll take a really beautiful picture of them, with their hair looking nice and a nice wardrobe, like under a really pretty blanket, holding up a book, right? And that is very appealing for another partner out there who is not all about, dirt and mud, right? That's going to be appealing. So we have to be authentic in who we are, but we want to showcase those things and be proud of those things, so that we can make that positive first impression. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes.
Um,
So one of the
yeah.
things you're doing with your clients is also identifying where in their lives have they created obstacles for
Mm,
for dating, finding love, attracting love. You give an
yes.
example of a client that you had who was a very busy lawyer, I believe it was, a professional,
Mm, hmm.
and she just didn't have time. Her schedule was so full that it's like you
Yes.
actually physically have an obstacle in your life right now, in your schedule, where you
Yes.
physically do not have time. So
Yes.
there has to be that, and this is a real obstacle, right?
Yes, totally. So I think you're referring to, I have a client who got married a couple years back, and she was a very specialized anesthesiologist,
Oh, yes, of
right?
course. Sorry, an
Yeah,
anesthesiologist. Yeah.
yeah, very specialized. And she was an ambitious one. So she was on the chair of many boards. She was on all kinds of committees, and plus, I mean, she worked like 80, hours a week. I mean, these specialized doctors often have, really important businesses to attend to, cases to attend to. And so, yeah, she was working about 80 hours a week, and she hired me, and she had accomplished absolutely everything that she really wanted to do in her professional life. But she really wanted to have a family and be at least be part of a family. She was 42. And so that was one of the first things we did, is just kind of, okay, so, sat down and had real talk about when this could possibly happen. Where in your schedule could you make this happen? And what she came up with was, on my way home from work, I could totally, get to know people via like phone call and chatting on my way home from work. And I was like, that's great. I'm glad we have that time. Tell me how you're feeling at that time. Are you feeling flirty and energized and, excited about what could be? And she says, not usually,
She's
right?
probably
I'm usually
exhausted. What a
feeling
great question,
exhausted.
Kristin. Your
Yeah,
energy has to
exhausted.
be in the right place too. I love that. Yeah.
Yes, it matters, And so
Yeah.
she realized, oh, I've got some, like, this is going to be, I have to treat this like a priority if it's really going to be a priority.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
bless her heart, she resigned from every committee that she sat on. She stopped chairing every group. She got out of, in fact, even she went from a full-time employee to like a three-quarters time employee, right? So that she could open up more weekends on her calendar that she could devote to having time to develop relationships if they were to have arisen. And within 6 months of clearing her calendar in that way, she found somebody great. They started dating. They dated for nearly a year, and then I heard they were getting engaged, and I got invited to their wedding, and I attended, and it was wonderful.
Wow. See, it's like, so there's so
Yeah.
many things at play here. So you helped identify the obstacle, which clearly was her time and
Right.
priority.
Yes.
And then she was able to, she did take actions in alignment with her priority, which was finding a partner, because
Yes.
you can have the desire, but if your actions and strategy aren't in alignment with that desire, nothing's
Yes.
going to happen, right? It's like,
Right.
you can't expect a different result by doing the same old thing.
Right.
I really, and I also just really, I love that, Kristen, how you're like, okay, your time for phone calls and dating, getting to know somebody new is not on your way home from work when you're just completely bagged and you're like, you're feeling
Right.
like, I just want to go to bed right now. I can't give you my full attention and
Right.
be in my light, flirty, open self. So
Right.
those are great.
Yeah. Well, and in her case, like she's very accomplished and has decided what she wanted and put effort and intention towards it and always accomplished it. And I had to ask her, is this an important priority? Because you, my friend, are really good at getting the things that you want. And you are really good at committing and putting effort towards this. Will this be one of them? And if it was, what would you have to do? Right? And I didn't tell her what to do. She decided on her own. She made all those changes and made those
Yeah,
decisions. And the emotional commitment, really spoke volumes in the results that she was able to get within months. Things were
I love
different.
it. Okay, so what about people that really are more on the other side of the spectrum? Okay, you're not working with an anesthesiologist here. You're not working with
Yeah.
like she's got a lot of skills to get shit
Yeah.
done, right? So
Right. Yes,
and then
absolutely.
she's proven, right, with her success and everything. What
Right.
about people that are just like coming along, like it's, but you talk about micro actions, like small actions that you can take that
Yes.
will garner big results. Like what little
So
things could people do that could make a big change over time?
let me tell you this, and this is how I break it down for new clients. This is what I have really observed. This isn't rooted in any science or research. This is my own, 20 years here watching people go through this process. Why are they, stuck forever and then all of a sudden are able to find success? And this
Mhm.
is the formula for success, right? You're talking about micro changes. This is it. So, here's what they get working for them. It's four things, right? First, it's belief, right? They have a positive belief that all of a sudden, maybe this is possible, right? Maybe I could do this. Like I see other people, they seem to have it, so I know it exists, right? So maybe I could find it. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I believe that it exists, right? So having that positive belief is the beginning of everything. Because if you just think, hey, all men are scum, they're all narcissists, and it's easy to think that because we have a lot of empirical evidence to prove that it is, um, then we tend to see what we believe is there, right? But if we shift and say, actually, I do know some happy couples, right? And I want to be one of them, right? And so if we have that belief, then we got to combine that belief with some good strategy, right? And
Yeah.
that's the ultimately what worked for me is I was using no strategy before or bad strategy before. But if
Mm.
we can decide that what we want exists, then I think, okay, what do I have to do to get that thing? Right? So in my case, I had to allow my friend to create this profile, even though it made me really, really uncomfortable, right? And then she coached me. There were some things that I didn't want to do that she really pushed me into doing and gave me the accountability, which, by the way, is the third piece, right? So it's
Accountability.
belief plus
Hmm.
good strategy, right? Which means we got to do a few things different than what we are doing. They don't have to, we don't have to get on a rocket ship and go to the moon, right? But we have to do some simple things differently. Combine that with accountability, right? Because if you're having batting practice, we've used this baseball metaphor before, there are going to be some really good pitches that come your way that you're just not going to hit. And that is painful, right? It's painful to fail, but it's part of the process of succession, right? Of
It sure
getting
is.
to where we need to go.
You know what I think about, Kristen, when I think about, practice and baseball analogy is, and I would say this to my clients when I was date coaching. It's like, if you're looking for a job, okay, let's say you get fired or let go, whatever, they're downsizing. And next thing you know, you're without a job. First of all,
Right.
you need a job. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
second of all, you're not going to give up until you get that job. And
Right.
I can almost guarantee that it's probably not going to be the first resume you put out there or the first interview you go on, right? And if it does happen that
No.
way, then kudos to you. However,
Yes.
the probability of
Yes.
that is very slim. So let's
Yes.
treat this as like every opportunity could be your person or your job. But
Right.
that's not going to, you just can't let it go until that happens. And I understand that it's not, sometimes can be very arduous, time consuming, stressful, all
Right.
the things you're going to have to go through. But the end result
Yes.
is going to be what you want and need.
What you ultimately want. And we need to have enough accountability on board so that we can make it through those arduous moments when you're like
Yeah.
seeing evidence that, maybe I am a failure. Ooh, maybe people do reject me. But also, in your job interview metaphor here, like, don't you want to have some wisdom and experience on board before you show up to your dream job interview? Don't you want to
Yes.
have learned a few things, right? And some of the best lessons we have ever learned are things that we learned the hard way, right? And
Yes,
mistakes we
that's
will
how
never
we
make
learn as
again.
human beings.
Right. Yep. And
Yeah.
then the very last thing in this like formula is luck, right? And here's what I
Mm.
have learned about luck. Or we could call
Yeah.
this God's timing if you want. If you're a spiritual person, I think they're about the same thing. And when you have a positive belief, when you are engaged in good strategy, right? When you have enough accountability to make it through the rough moments, what you're going to notice is that the windows of luck are actually often open to you on a fairly regular basis, right? Almost like a lunar cycle, right? Robin, do you notice every time there's a full moon in the sky?
Funny, I don't, but my cousin does. She's got it on her. But I'm not that
Yeah,
person. But
I'm
thank
not
goodness
that
I got my
person
cousin to be
either.
like, it's a full moon tomorrow. I'm like, really? Okay.
But
But
we
yeah,
could be like your cousin. Like if the
yeah,
signs are there, they're
it's
easy to
true.
track. If you put some effort into watching the cycles of the moon, you'll know exactly when it's full. And the
Hmm.
same thing is true with our luck, right? It comes around for us on a regular basis. If we're engaged in good strategy and have accountability, we'll see those signs that it's about to be there so that when that window of opportunity opens up, we're able to jump through it instead of be oblivious to it, right? Which is
Yes.
often what we're doing. And certainly in my case, as I look back at all the opportunities that I had and just didn't realize, I'm kicking myself because I could have had this joy, no regrets because I'm really happy in the life that I have now, but it didn't have to be that way. If I had been better engaged in good strategy and in building accountability into my life and really fostering a positive belief, it could have happened for me a lot sooner.
You
Yeah.
are you're creating your luck. I do.
It very much.
All of this, like you said, it's like the 1, 2, 3 all together equals 4. And it's not
Yeah.
just some happenstance. And I think that's the other thing is like we're so lost. Our culture is still very much believing about this fairy tale analogy. Like this person's just going to fall out of the sky. And like when he appears, he appears. And when she appears, it's meant to be.
Yes.
Actually, what I would rather believe and what I do see in how we create our realities is like it is our belief, it is our actions, our strategy, and follow
Yeah.
through, accountability that lead
Yes.
to the results that we're creating. Like we're
Well,
co-creating with the universe.
and the nice thing about it is that you can take a step back and think, where am I lacking here? Is it my strategy? Like I can
Right.
step forward with strategy, right? Or is it just accountability? Like do I need to call my best friend and ask her to check up on me twice a week to see if I've jumped in on my dating apps or if I've got something planned for the weekend? Like, if I can just ramp up my accountability, or, is my problem belief? Do I need to read a book, right? Do I need to read, what's Lori Gottlieb's book that I love so much? Maybe you should talk
Maybe
to
you talk
someone.
to someone.
Yeah. Do I need to read something that's going to help me
Yeah.
with my belief a bit more? Like, where am I lacking? And then ramp up that element, right? It's not everything across the board. Typically, it's one thing or the other. And we can take steps forward once we've identified what piece is too low for you.
Yes.
Right? We have the power to make things grow, even if we're
We
not
should.
an anesthesiologist.
Gosh, Kristin, I'm just so happy we talked today. I think that all of our listeners are going to get so much from this discussion because, like you said, it's like very empowering to know that you can look at this formula and say, like, where's my gap? And actually, you can learn, you can take steps to make like big change.
I could do this.
So,
absolutely. Yeah,
and
I
I
see it
hope
all
that
the time.
yes,
I
well, I
had
hope that
7
any
clients
listeners
get
are.
engaged
Oh, sorry.
in
You had
March.
7
Sorry. I had
in
7
March?
clients get engaged in March. That was like my highest month ever.
It's
Right. And these are
amazing.
all really regular people who have just realized something and doing little micro things
Yeah.
differently. And gosh, they find what they're looking for.
Well, can you please let me know when our listeners join you and they're
Oh,
all you
for
helping
sure.
them, because I want to know. I
Yes.
just think you're
Yes.
the best, Kristin. I thank you so much for your
Oh,
time today, sweetie.
my
And
pleasure.
and you're doing amazing work in the world, building more love and
Mm,
relationships. That's what
mm.
it's all about, right?
It's my favorite thing to do. I'm so glad that this is my job.
Oh, I can tell. Well, I'm going to close our chat with a blessing, and it's based on your words. So.
Mm.
May we become conscious of our beliefs, especially those that are limiting our views about ourselves, love, and relationships. May we implement and follow strategies while also holding ourselves accountable in order to make the positive changes we want to experience in life. And may we remember that the universe does provide unique opportunities for all of us, usually more than we can even realize. So
Mm.
thank you, Kristin Sokol.
Oh, my pleasure. So good to see you.
Always so good to see you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Visit realloveready.com to continue learning with us. Please rate and review this podcast. Your feedback helps us get you the tools and guidance you need to form more loving relationships and create positive change in your life. We at Real Love Ready acknowledge and express gratitude for the Coast Salish people, the stewards of the land on which we work and play, and encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge and express gratitude for those that have stewarded and continue to steward the land that you live on as well. Many blessings and much love.